Welcome to Express Your Opinion. My name is Diana LeBlanc, and I'll be hosting the show tonight. We are going to zero in on this big question of what's happening with the Twin City Rail, I always have trouble saying this, rail trail. There we are. And I have a guest with me tonight who has done extensive research on this project, and she'd like to share some of her thoughts with you. Mary, how are you doing this evening?
I'm very good, Deanna. Thank you very much for hosting me tonight. I really appreciate it, and thank you to LATV.
And what's your background here? Why are we here with you?
Well, I'm a Leominster resident, and I've lived in Leominster since 1991. I happen to work along the rail trail on Route 12 corridor, so this came to our attention because of this. The first time it actually came to our attention was someone from Fitchburg that visited us.
Okay. Now, we're going to just basically talk about three problems tonight. What's the first problem?
Well, there was a serious lack of candor about the actual facts associated with the rail trail.
And what do you mean by a lack of candor?
Well, the information that was given from the state when we had a couple of meetings before the city council led us to believe that the encroachments would be covered by CSX, the rail trail, prior to the purchase. And in the end, that really did not turn out to be the truth.
Well, what is the truth?
The truth is now that all the abutters who have encroachments are responsible for paying for those removals themselves. That's several hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, nobody has an answer. We're talking parking lots, basketball courts. We're talking supporting walls. We're talking, for instance, all kinds of things throughout the city.
Okay, and you talked about encroachments. I don't know if the audience knows what an encroachment is.
Well, an encroachment is basically when you're on someone else's land. In this case, it's a little unique because this land was abandoned for over 30 years, and a lot of times people didn't even realize that they were encroaching. They bought properties up and down the corridor, and they were routinely sold, and no one ever realized that their encroachments were actually on the railroad land.
And who is this affecting?
This is affecting everyone who is on the corridor from Carter Park all the way down to First Street in Fitchburg.
All right, and businesses are affected, landowners are affected?
Everyone is affected. If you actually are along the trail and you would butt the trail, pretty much every single person, unless you had a lease, which is only a couple of people, have encroachments. In Leominster, there is 134 encroachments, and in Fitchburg, there is 86 property addresses affected.
Now, you had a visual to show the people what that will look like.
Yes, we do, but we have a tape that we would like to see from the council. This is the presentation that we just described.
And this goes to the lack of candor.
Right.
Okay. That tape, you want to run that tape, please?
I guess my last question would just be the acquisition of property. Are there a lot that has to be acquired, or there are properties along the way? Is that what you said? That there are some properties that...
The acquisition itself is the rail right-of-way owned by CSX.
Oh, okay. And they're cooperative?
Yes, the cities, Larry Casaza, City of Fitchburg, on behalf of both cities, has been negotiating with CSX for some time to come to agreement on the price and the terms to make sure that CSX took care of the encroachments prior to the sale. So yes, the CSX has been cooperative, and the two cities have reached agreement on the terms of the sale.
And so there's no private property involved?
Well, I'll let Pam into detail, but there are encroachments, which basically means
Right.
private actions by an abutting, usually private property owner on land that is presently owned by CSX and that would come to the two cities.
So, good evening. As far as the encroachments, again, the cities are working with CSX to take care of the major encroachments, and they'll also be working on the minor encroachments for the construction of the trail project. This piece right now that we're looking for, the acquisition of the rail corridor, is based on the actual corridor. CSX is nationally going around selling off corridors that they do not expect to be using for future rail, And so this piece is subject to be split up, and that's why the timing is so important. We don't want to lose this valuable corridor, and that's part of the reason that your community is receiving the federal aid for acquisition. This is a very rare and limited occurrence. Typically, federal aid in Massachusetts and in most communities is not used for the actual acquisition, and it's only used for the actual construction of the rail project. Later on, as the design progresses for the project, there will be areas where easements will be needed, for adjacent to cross streets where we might need to do wheelchair ramps. We may need to reset some utility poles. We may need to realign a sidewalk, but we'll be working with the communities through the design process and the community groups to ensure that we're constructing a safe project.
So it sounds like the question of encroachments weren't really answered.
No, we really didn't get a clear answer. And the sad part about that, October 24th is the day that the City Council voted in all the money to buy the rail trail. That day, everyone sitting at the table in front of you had the report that showed 134 encroachments in in Leominster, and the 86 properties in Fitchburg. And not only did they fail to inform the City Council about that clearly and understanding, they also failed to explain to them that they were going to clear 85 feet of land. And this 85 feet of land is really where all the encroachments are. And that's what is so confusing for people. We routinely hear like, oh, you use someone else's land. The reality was that's not true. That land was abandoned, and people who had fences perhaps on this land were there to protect their property. And we have an encroachment paper so we can explain to people exactly what that looks like.
Could you put that up, please?
So if you see the display, if you look in the middle with the bike path and the two rails, well, there you can see that's what the bike path looks like. So everything we heard in Leominster where we were paving 12 feet, there is not one document that explains they are actually clearing 85 feet. It simply says 12 feet. Now, they're going to pave that 12 feet, and on each side of that, there will be an additional 2 feet of either fencing or grass, depending upon the location of that. So then if you, at the end of those 2 feet, were to go out 30 feet on each end of that, that is exactly where the encroachments are. And if you look at the blue boxes at the top and the bottom, that is where 90% of the encroachments are. And that is perhaps 30 feet up a hill. In the case of Big Steve, he had to move his vacuum pumps 2 feet forward. Some people are down the hill 30 feet, and they're being told to move these things. And if we could see the picture of Big Steve's vacuum pump so everyone can understand this.
And who is Big Steve?
This is Big Steve's car wash. He loves Leominster. He donates free vacuums to everyone, and trust me, his vacuums are always being used. He's a great guy, but he's a small businessman. It cost him over $5,000 to move these pumps 2 feet forward. The rail trail is 30 feet down the embankment. This is what I really want people to understand today. When you're hearing of these encroachments, there's situations like this. This is a small business. He really loves this city. This is not productive to small business owners.
Yes, it isn't at all. Now, there's another E, easement. What's the difference?
Easement is when the state wants to come on your land. There are 2 forms of easement. You can either have a permanent or a temporary. In this case, the majority of easements are temporary. However, there are some significant permanent ones as well. When they take a permanent easement, such on Battle Street or other locations, that land is lost. The owner of that land loses complete access, and that is taken care of indefinitely. The temporary easements, that's like if you see on the side of Lindell Ave where they just did some work and they threw grass on the side, that's a temporary easement. In this case, the rail trail, they're asking for the temporary easements to be 5 years long. Now, we are told construction was going to be 2 years, and then we were told 3 years, but it says 5 years, and we don't know really how long it's going to last.
All right, can we leave this topic?
Certainly.
All right, let's look at safety. I know that a lot of citizens and residents of Leominster are worried about safety for their children, safety for themselves, for many different, I'm even thinking families in cars, bike riders, walkers. Has anything been done? about the safety?
Well, we've asked numerous questions about safety concerns, and as always, we are told, go to the federal government, go to the state government. This is one of the things that's been happening with this. If you go to the city halls in either city, you're told, oh, it's a state issue, it's a federal issue. We've been fighting the battle now since May of 2019, when all the landowners actually received their easements and their encroachments letters. And what some people don't understand is you can have both an encroachment and an easement, so this project can be taking a lot more land away from you than what you people generally think. So we've been following these easements, and you've got the letters, like I said, May and April. It wasn't until that day, and that's only 4 months ago or 5 months ago, that people actually understood the amount of property being affected, the cost, and what it was doing to our community along the Route 12 corridor.
And what is it doing to the cities monetarily wise?
Well, monetarily wise, now that we know that CSX did not pay to clear the encroachments and didn't resolve them, then now the cities and towns and the landowners are responsible. So right now, currently, landowners are receiving threatening letters stating that state and federal law claim that you have to clear these encroachments. I have been working diligently with the state, and I finally today obtained an email that, in fact, it is not a federal law on the encroachments. It is actually a regulation. I have been meeting with other elected officials through their office, and I am hopeful that we will be able to go to Washington and seek a waiver, especially now that there's great news that it is not a law. So there is hope that we can seek some corrections. My disappointment is nobody seems to want to help these people, help the small businesses, and help the owners. We're a community. We need to work together.
Part of the safety issue is crossing the streets.
Absolutely. If you just want to, we have a traffic graphic, if we want to put that up for everyone to see. This was a soft traffic test that we did last Saturday. And as you can see, crossing the traffic lights on 12 and 13 being 0, you next come out a half a mile behind Priest and Doyle Street, where there will be no lights. It'll be simply a crosswalk. And then you go to Water Tower Plaza, and you're at point 8. You've traveled 3/10 of a mile. Then you go to Hamilton Street as well as Doubletree. All of those lights will have push buttons for the people to come down and press them in order to cross the road. So in other words, we're told that it's going to be a trail that's really safe, but unfortunately, if you look at this, we have to get off the trail, go down to the lights, press the button, and cross. And I feel for drivers as well, because we all know that people become impatient and they don't want to wait for the crosswalk. So will kids be darting out on their bikes in the middle of North Main Street? We have no way of knowing. We've asked over and over for a traffic study, and we just can't get an answer. So if you really look at the graph and see it, you can see that when you travel 1.3 miles, you've already gone through 5 major intersections in the city of Leominster. Can you imagine traffic at 4 o'clock with school buses on a Thursday afternoon with everybody pressing the crosswalk buttons? And it goes all down the road, all the way to the end of Fitchburg. But what's real troubling about the Doubletree and the Hamilton Street intersection is that leads into North Main Street, and it leads up to Merriam Ave. And we all know North Main Street's traffic is terrible. So if we're holding up Hamilton Street, we're holding up North Main Street.
Now, at the meetings, city council meetings that we've gone to, I've noticed quite a few people get up in favor of this. And they talk about there being one in Acton and one in Littleton and one here and one there. Do they have that many stops, those?
No, this is a highly unusual one, and I've asked over and over. I was referred to Chicopee, and I was also referred to Westfield, and I went to Westfield State, not even close. Chicopee has a few crossing roads. There is no other rail trail associated to a major route like North Main Street. And we really need to look at this traffic, because some child, it could be a walker, it could be a biker, but it only takes one mistake. When a car hits a person or a bike, there is no protection. And we actually fix cars, so I can tell you I've seen some of these accidents, and it's awful. It is just awful.
And talking about other communities, wasn't there 2 other communities that are thinking of Can we talk about that?
Well, there were a couple of communities also that have banded together to be against rail trails. We're not the first community to have serious questions. And I think part of the problem was that there was nobody from the Route 12 corridor that was ever involved in the process. We have an organization of trail people who enjoy riding on a trail, and I think it's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with the trail. But this place that we're trying to put a trail in is not perhaps the most scenic or most rural or really a safe location that we're doing this. I mean, we also have the question of the toxic site on 259 North Main Street that I've been asking questions about. So there's personal safety from walking and riding your bike in the intersections. There's the land that we're putting it on. There's the policing. We have yet to hear a policing plan for this. I'm extremely concerned. What if we need an ambulance? How does the ambulance respond? What are the response times? We don't know.
And do you know what the city's goal is, their number one goal with this? To start in 6 weeks or to...
Well, the process that's coming up right now, and if anybody read the Sentinel on Monday night, they could see that they voted in the easement payments. Now, they voted $83,000 from our tax dollars and another $68,000 from Chapter 90, which actually is supposed to go to fixing our roads. So right now, the City Council is voting against putting money into our roads and taking it for this rail trail. And that, I don't think, is appropriate. We all know what our roads look like.
All right, I think that we've covered those topics pretty well, and I've got two visitors here. And first, John Ferreira, who owns City Tire. I'm sure most of you people in Leominster remember him. He has something to say about this encroachment or the easement.
Encroachment. First of all, I was unaware of any of this going on until Mary informed me about the encroachment, because the letter I was supposed to get actually went to my tenants in Rochester, New York. Fortunately, there's only 6 inches of my building in one corner that's on the encroachment over the line. That's according to the Rail Trails Surveyor. In 81, we had our land surveyed by Whitman and Bingham, and we look at it. We want to put the addition on our building, and we look at it, and we stay, according to this survey, within our boundaries. So we're going to have to go ahead and look at this and bring Whitman and Bingham back in to reevaluate this. But let's go to what's happening along the trail. They're talking 12 feet of rail trail. Why don't we give them the 12 feet and another 15 feet on each side? That would leave 21 feet for the abutters along the way. Could the city make a deal with them and lease this property to who need it? It would help local businesses. It would help the Hyundai deal. It would help Schofields. It would help every business along the way that's encroached. The homeowners would have another 15 feet or 20 feet of privacy in their yards, which I'm quite sure they would be happy to have. The trail would be there. The businesses, if they could do this, would be happy. So everybody would get what they would like. So let's hope that this is not a wish list and that the city council would look at this, maybe slow down the process, and look at it and see if this can be done. My building, it will not be affected, according to according to Nikki Peters and John, that they would not make me move any part of my building unless in the future that the building should need to be reconstructed, that we would have to move the building back that 6 inches to stay on our land. Which I believe it could be wrong, because I had it surveyed and we're going to look forward to this. Let's hope that we could make everybody happy in the city and help the people that may lose income and keep these people working instead of giving their money away. So this is my opinion, and thank you.
Thank you for expressing your opinion. And now we have Dennis Rosa with us, who also is an owner of a business, American
Auto Body.
Okay, and an ex-state representative, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What were you going to talk about, Dennis?
Well, I was going to talk
Encroachment?
about the encroachments a little bit and about this project, how it started is very anti-business and very anti-homeowner. But I wanted to speak about encroachments as a business owner of American Auto Body Repair. Now, when we built our new office in 2000, the zoning laws allowed you to build within 12 inches of the railroad land. We got along with CX very well over the years, but when they abandoned the land, a lot more drug trafficking came into the area. A lot of drug deals, a lot of vandalism. So American Auto Body took upon itself to clean up some of the railroad property. We took, I don't know, dozens of truckloads of trash out of the property. We cleaned it up. We made sure the area was lighted around our shop and where we bought the railroad land, and we put a fence up. Reason we put the fence up because of the drug deals and vandalism was really getting bad. Now the fence is at the top of a 35-foot embankment. You can't use that embankment for anything. So the city sent us a letter. We're encroaching on railroad land, which we agreed to out of necessity when they abandoned it. And we took the fence down. Now I have a problem again. It's open to vandalism. And not only that, American Auto Body works with the community. We work with our neighborhood. We put crime watch signs all throughout the neighborhood, maintain those over the years, work with the neighbors, and crime actually went down in our neighborhood. Now, when you start taking down some of these fences, you open it up to vandalism again. So I just wanted to give you a perspective because of the encroachments that business might make, because they were kind of making it look like we were the really bad guys. We're not trying to take anybody's land. We're just trying to make it safe and protect our businesses. The other thing I wanted to talk about, when I first went to Fitchburg, at their public hearing, there was very little information. So Mary did a lot of research and got some of the information. None of the city councils had contracts until last week. Under the Freedom of Information Act, I requested those contracts, and I requested thousands of pages of information about the rail trail. The city of Leominster and the city of Leominster had that information, but the city councils didn't. So because of Mary asking for some of this information and myself asking for this information under the Freedom of Information Act, this has been more public and it's helped out. So I've seen some progress. Mary's been working very hard with the city and the state, and they're starting to make some concessions, but not nearly enough. So I still label this as a very anti-business package and anti-homeowner transportation project. When I was a state rep for 8 years, we voted on millions and millions of dollars and perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars for transportation projects, which included rail trails. I was all for rail trails, but Leominster's very unique, as Mary said. We've got 12 intersecting ways that you have to go by, and one of the streets, Moore Street, doesn't have a traffic light. It has a crosswalk at the top of the hill, but when you see where the railroad is, I can't picture people going up the hill to use the crosswalk and then come back down the hill. It's a very dangerous hill. It's very difficult to get out onto North Main Street. So I just wanted people to just hear from me as an owner of American Auto Body and Repair, and that I did support rail trails when I was a state representative.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. And thank you, John. Mary, I think we put a lot of information out there.
Well, we have a few more things that we certainly should get across that we can cover that I just want to make sure that everybody understands. What Dennis talked about, the Freedom of Information Act, what we actually uncovered was that the City Council signed an emergency preamble to give the mayor complete control of this project, complete control. And he wrote a letter, and I gave all this information to the City Council that clearly says that he needed the emergency preamble because we were closing on the railroad land on December 5th of 2016. In fact, that did not happen. There was no closing because we actually do have the contract, and it actually did close on June 14th. So during that 6-month period of time, no one was aware of. We believe that's when the contract that was signed by Larry Costanza actually did not include the fact that CSX was not going to be able to resolve the encroachments. That's huge. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. We need to look at this. I've asked the City Council to review all the documents. I also sent them a private email, and I said to them, please, for our community. Leominster's a wonderful community, but we have to work together. We're either all good or we're not good. And that's the way it really is. We're Leominster strong, but we need to work harder to make everybody in our community good with this rail trail.
All right, that sounds wonderful. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about the project?
I would just like to, I have really nothing to add about the project. We have more information. I know people are contacting us all the time at American Auto Body, and that's absolutely fine, but just please remember during the day we are a business as well. We will help anyone that's coming forward. It's not about one person is more important than the other. We're all important, and I just want to stress that everyone has a say in this that lives along the corridor, and that was the one thing that was missed. But today, I hope, with this news getting out and the City Council reviewing the documents, that we will have a pass on the vote and that they will table it for study. And if they do that, we are entitled to get the transportation dollars back. Transportation funds are routinely returned. So my hope is, and my goal of everything, is to just take a step back, get the information, we still have the money available to us, and that we do this protectively for the safety of our community, in the best interest of the abutters of the community, and certainly for the hopefulness that everyone appreciates what we have built.
Okay, so express your opinion. Leominster Access TV. We hope that you will use this information and get behind this movement. Did you have a site where...
Oh, we do have a Facebook page that is Stop Twin City Rail Trail. It's a Facebook page. And again, all the information that we just mentioned is there. There are a lot of the land graphs and letters that you can read yourself. So it's a real good source of information if you want to take a few minutes to review that.
All right. Anybody, gentlemen, anything to add?
I think we're all set.
I think we're all set. I think we're all set. Okay, again, I want to thank you for watching Express Your Opinion, and don't forget, express your opinion.
Thank you, Deanna.